At the Chamber, we are moving forward despite, the obstacles that we continue to face. With our mission and vision in mind, we'd like to welcome a new member, Arby's. Arby's is going into, I think I'll always call it the original McDonald's, but on Court Street there, they're doing lots of work, and they signed up to be members. So we welcome them to town and look forward to them being a part of the Chamber. We're continuing our business outreach visits to our local businesses, trying to uncover the ever-changing issues that are facing the various business sectors and provide connections and assistance where needed. We're working together with our limited staff and board of directors and special divisions and task force to provide our members the quality programs and bring forth important information like our program today that needs to be heard and disseminated throughout the community, so there's a better understanding of what we can do as individuals and a collective group to encourage positive change. Please keep your eyes out for the Pulse of the City email publication that will keep you up to date on all the dates of our events and programs that are upcoming. If you do not know what I'm talking about, if you're not receiving the Pulse of the City email, please let Cynthia know, because there is some important information there. And if it's the one email that you read from the Chamber, please read that one twice a month. A couple of events that we want to make sure that you take note of that are coming up quickly. We'll be hosting the virtual State of the City on July 15th. This event is usually, of course, in March, but we're going to do it virtually. And we'll have Mayor Rich Landsberg and the interim city manager, Ken Hyatt, give us an update on the many projects and issues that the city of Woodland is currently facing. And we're anticipating a large turnout. So when you see that announcement, please make sure and sign up. Also, we're going to, you probably saw this over the last couple of days, we have set a date for our golf tournament on September 17th. It will be a modified event, and it will be limited in players. So as you know, get your group together now and sign up early. It's going to be out at Yocha Dehi, and I'm sure it'll be a great time. Just a little different from our normal golf tournament. Then of course we've got our program today. The Chamber's Public Community Affairs Division leader, Ron Caceres, and we sat down with Mayor Rich Landsberg in late January to discuss the hot topics that are affecting, our business community. And of course, homelessness, theft crimes, drug addiction were obvious issues that we were discussing. And Mayor Landsberg cited Proposition 47 at that time as the main factor as why the city and county's hands are tied. So unless initiative to demand change was made, we would continue to face these problems. So we wanted to put together this program today in an effort to educate our membership on the foundational issue that we're being faced with and possible resolutions. So please join me in welcoming, and I do have a little bio on each of them, District Attorney Jeff Reisick. As Yolo County's chief elected law enforcement official, District Attorney Jeff Reisick oversees all criminal prosecutions in Yolo County, as well as consumer fraud and environmental civil actions. Reisick supervises 36 prosecutors and a total staff of 112 who together serve a diverse county population of approximately 215,000. In addition to his primary role as the chief prosecutor, Reisick has initiated multiple innovative programs to foster community involvement in public safety issues. Specifically, DA Reisick spearheaded the development of Neighborhood Court, a volunteer-based restorative justice alternative to traditional prosecution for low-level offenses, as well as mental health court and addiction intervention court, a specialized process that focuses on treatment that offers sustainable recovery for offenders whose criminality stems from their mental health condition or drug addiction. District Attorney Reisig also created the Yolo County District Attorney's Multicultural Community Council as a way of engaging a diverse group of citizens in direct communication with the District Attorney on issues of cultural awareness and other sensitive issues in the criminal justice system. Finally, Reisig developed a Citizens Academy to provide Yolo County residents an opportunity to learn about all aspects of the criminal justice system directly from prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys, peace officers, and victim advocates. I would also like to welcome Chief Derek Caff. Chief Derek Caff began his career in law enforcement with the Los Angeles Police Department in 1996. In 2000, he moved and became an officer with the Woodland Police Department. Derek has had assignments as a member of the SWAT team, range safety officer, bike patrol team, field training officer, and the professional standards unit. He graduated from the FBI National Academy in 2019 and is a member of the International Chiefs of Police Transnational Crime Committee. Derek was promoted to Deputy Chief in 2016, where he oversaw the day-to-day operations of the entire department. In July 2019, Derek served as the interim Chief of Police and was promoted to Chief of Police in October of 2019. So please help me in welcoming DA Jeff Reisig, Chief Derek Caff. We didn't really give them a forum, but again, this is a way that we want to educate our membership on Proposition 47 and what we are currently dealing with in our city. Jeff, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me? Thumbs up? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of history on Prop 47, and then Chief Caff can jump in and talk about how it's actually playing out on the streets here in Woodland. But I'll give you a quick overview. So I'm going to try and do this in less than 5 minutes. But Mayor Landsberg made the comment that Proposition 47 is one of the main drivers for the increase in homelessness, and he's absolutely right. This is something that we've seen across California since Proposition 47 was enacted in November of 2014. And at the time, it was put on the ballot, and it was an initiative, and it was entitled the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. And so it had a really nice title on it. And an interesting fact is that it did pass, but when you look at the numbers, I have these. First of all, it was opposed by over 95% of every DA, police chief, and sheriff in California. We were almost unanimous in opposing it because we knew it would be bad policy. And the numbers show that only 10% of the entire state actually voted in November of 2014. So 10% of the people in our state decided this was the law for us. So just an interesting fact. But here's what Prop 47 did. And I'm going to tell you what life was like before Prop 47 so you can understand after. The real driver for the homelessness problem, in my opinion, I think a lot of you would agree, is addiction. You have people that are terribly addicted to drugs. And I believe addiction is a sickness. I believe it needs to be treated. I don't believe in locking up drug addicts and sending them to prison for years. I don't think that's a viable solution. And frankly, before Prop 47, we weren't doing that. Before Proposition 47, if somebody was using methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, etc., and they were intercepted by law enforcement, they would come into the criminal justice system, and we had numerous drug courts and programs that were set up to allow people to get the treatment that they needed. And the key is that there was compulsion, because those crimes, those offenses were felonies. And so it gave judges some leverage to get people into treatment. And in my experience, and I've been here in Yolo County, this is my 14th year as the DA and almost 24 in this office, people weren't going to prison for being drug addicts. unless they offended again and again and again. I mean, 5, 6, 7, 8 times of drug use and committing other crimes might get somebody sent to prison. But for the most part, they were in treatment. So November 2014 comes around, Prop 47 is put on the ballot, and what it does is it decriminalizes numerous offenses from felonies to misdemeanors. So for example, the possession of heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine was all downgraded from a felony to a misdemeanor. And the key to that is that a misdemeanor is a more de minimis crime. It doesn't expose anybody to state prison. They're never going to leave the community. They'll always be here, either in the county jail or on local probation. In addition to downgrading the possession of drugs from felonies to misdemeanors, it also downgraded theft offenses like petty theft. Somebody could go into a store, and as long as they were stealing under $950, they could steal every day for a year, and it's always going to be a misdemeanor. And before Prop 47, the rule was if you commit 3 such offenses, your 4th time could elevate it to a felony, which again gives the judge more leverage, including sending someone to prison. There were other things Prop 47 did, which may not be relevant to you as business owners, but some of the reasons I opposed it at the time, and I still obviously oppose it, is it made stealing a gun a misdemeanor, which some of the strongest advocates for Prop 47 are people that are really anti-gun, and I just thought it was quite ironic that Prop 47 made stealing a gun a misdemeanor. Seems insane to me, especially in light of the fact that we've had 3 police officers murdered in Yolo County during my tenure, and they were all murdered by men who had stolen guns. So just bad policy. It also made the possession of date rape drugs a misdemeanor. We have a huge date rape problem at UC Davis. We have hundreds of cases a year that we're looking at, and a lot of them involve possession of date rape drugs, which Prop 47 made a misdemeanor. Again, I just don't understand that. But for your purposes, and when you're connecting the homelessness and the massive increase that we've seen across California, and Woodland, I know, has been hit the hardest. The problem is Prop 47 has really taken away the tools of getting people into treatment, of compelling them to get into treatment. And so you have people who are seriously addicted. Many of them have co-occurring mental health disorders. Sometimes, the mental health disorder may be attributed to their long-term use of methamphetamine or heroin or something like that. Other times it's a pre-existing condition, but nonetheless, you have people that are really sick who are addicted. And how do they support their habit? How do they get the money to buy the drugs? They steal. Well, as long as their theft is less than $950 a day, they can steal every single day, and they're never going to be forced into, they're never going to prison. And again, they're going to stay local. Whatever happens to them, they'll stay local. And this is where the chief will jump in a minute, and I'm sure he'll explain to you how this is all playing out, in the community here. But that is essentially, what has happened is that the system was modified to take away, to lessen the punishment that these people face, but it took away a real effective tool, being the drug courts. And the law right now does not mandate treatment. And this is where, my advocacy to you all, and what I've said to the mayor and others, is communities need to start speaking up that this needs to be fixed. I'm not saying that we should send these people to prison. I'm saying we should change the law to mandate drug treatment, confined drug treatment, if that's what's required in the opinion of an expert, a doctor, somebody who's an addiction specialist. They should be evaluating these people when they do come into the system and saying this person needs to go into a locked facility for treatment. Again, not prison. So, but the law doesn't currently allow that. And that's just not happening. That is not happening anywhere in California right now, where people are being locked up and getting treatment. Their treatment program is being offered, but here in Yolo County, 99.9% of the people who are arrested for these offenses and go through the misdemeanor prosecution will reject any voluntary treatment option. And they'll take the jail time, which is de minimis, and they'll be out, sometimes before the officer can even get back onto the street. And again, Chief Caff can highlight some of those problems. But so that's a real high level view. And I've been talking now for 8 minutes, so I'll go ahead and stop and pass it off to Chief Caff.
Mr. Reisig, before we move on, we have a couple of questions in the chat box. Josh Hilliard's asking, is a $950 limit a cumulative total per day or a per occurrence amount? Sorry, did you move? Okay, hang on a second. There you go.
There we go. So yeah, the answer is it's a per incident. So there's no aggregating. So you can literally, walk down Main Street and walk into every store, and as long as you're stealing under $950, there's no way that we can legally aggregate that to get above the felony mark. It's a misdemeanor in each store.
Okay.
And that's a good question, because it actually is happening all over California and all over Yolo County, where we have people that are these serial thieves just going from store to store to store.
Thank you. And let's see, we have Tom Stallard asking, could you comment on the status of the funding for your office? If you want to do that now, or you want to wait until the end of the program, that's fine.
I mean, I'll keep it really quick and tell you that right now, obviously, all government agencies are in a deep funding crisis because of COVID. But in addition, there is a big defund law enforcement movement, which is sweeping across the country, and it's embedded here in Yolo County. At least with one of our supervisors seems to be openly supporting the idea of defunding the police and the DA. And if that happens, 95% of the DA's office is people. And if we have to lay off too many people, we'll have to cut services. And the services that we would cut would be the low-level crimes. Obviously, we keep prosecuting murderers, rapists, and child molesters. But the low-level crimes we would no longer prosecute at all would be some of the exact same things you're all concerned about, which are petty theft, vandalism, homelessness, urinating in public. I mean, those are things that we just would not be able to take in. And so I've been spreading this word that if you care about public safety in Yolo County, this is not a joke. This is actually a time in history where our elected leaders are either going to support us in what we're doing, or there's going to be cuts to service across the board. And it'll be devastating for communities, but that's the synopsis.
Thank you, Jeff. Chief Caff.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see many of you. I haven't seen you in months. But let me talk a little bit about Prop 47, then I'll talk about what's happening here locally. I just want to highlight the point that because of Prop 47, it's so much easier to commit crimes, because law enforcement, we've had to change how we do business. What I'm talking about is citations are up and jail bookings are down with this law. And the criminals get to take advantage of this shift in enforcement. But because crimes are now lower, that means that we cannot always use the traditional enforcement methods we had. And while the purpose of Prop 47 may be really kind, it is generally cruel to punish somebody with an addiction. I fully agree. And it's also practical, because sending someone to prison makes it more of a challenge for them to reintegrate back into society when they come out of prison. But what we're talking about here today is that the unintended downstream impact of this legislation. It's led to people shooting up drugs in public. Now it's commonplace. I mean, they're doing it at supermarkets, out in front of City Hall, even in playgrounds. And one of the reasons why the crimes are down in statistics is because I think the general community is just exhausted. They recognize that it's the same people committing the same crimes over and over again. And so they've stopped reporting them. I don't want that. I want everyone to continue reporting. Absolutely. So really, looking towards the future, the criminal justice system just has to continue evolving if we're going to adequately serve the community. Now, here in Yolo County, we have a long history of that. Oh, I forgot my introduction. So Derek Caff been here about 20 years, and the Woodland Police Department has been here for 149. So we're looking forward to a big anniversary next year. We are absolutely open to evolving, and what DA Reisig is talking about here, if you listen to his the bio that he's talking about, those are a bunch of programs: neighborhood court, restorative justice programs. The way that Yolo County has operated, this is the type of thing that people all across the nation are looking at here locally, that you and I take for granted because it's what we deal with every day. But these programs, and one that I didn't hear mentioned that is absolutely phenomenal, is the data-driven intervention and prosecution program. And what that is, and I think you'd all agree, it makes common sense, right? That there's a really small percentage of the population, and even the criminal population, that commits an inordinate amount of crimes. And it makes good sense. It makes good fiscal sense, and it makes good crime safety sense to focus our limited resources on those people that cause an inordinate amount of crime. That could be through numbers, right? That they're the ones committing. Like, we had a guy in 2019 that we had arrested him 37 times before we were able to finally get him into a program where he was able to get wraparound services. And now, I don't know where he is today, but he's not committing crimes here in Yolo County. And I don't believe he's in custody either. So whether it be due to numbers or violence, we know that there is a small percentage of criminals that commit the majority of our violent crime. If you've heard me speak before, you know that I say we have way too much violent crime in town. Most of us don't know about it because the crime is typically related in between groups. We've made a significant effort and change in the last 9 months, year, I'd say, because we started seeing last July an uptick in violent crime. And then we were able to work with our county partners, state and federal partners also. I don't know what's happening to my camera here, but it looks like it's getting fuzzy. But
you're coming in clear on his sound, just to reassure you.
Am I?
Yes.
Okay. But so we reformed the county gang task force. We have had strong support from the district attorney's office. We've been taking case after case after case, and knock on wood, we are currently setting a record for the length of time that Woodland has gone since we have had a shooting. Not trying to curse it, so I'm knocking on wood, but that's, I believe, directly related to us focusing on key crime drivers here in the community. Woodland has some challenges because we're the county seat, right? So when we talk about Prop 47 and we talk about homeless issues, we are where the majority of services are in Yolo County. And then if we look at it even broader perspective, where the majority of services are for a number of the surrounding counties. And so it's attractive to folks when they're trying to get help, or when service providers are looking to try and get someone help, that people end up in Woodland. Now, we have a very strong repatriation program where if we find out that somebody is here in the community, they were getting services, but now they're not engaging in services, we do everything we can to get them back home where they were before so that they can get services there. And that's really the purpose behind our host team. So our host team is trying to build relationships. It's not an enforcement team. They absolutely make arrests. They absolutely write citations. But the goal behind host is to recognize what are the needs of an individual, not just all homeless people, but individual by individual, and get them connected with services. One quick success story from, it was just a couple of weeks ago. We identified this gentleman. He's a Yolo County native, but he was homeless. Turns out he's also a veteran. We got him hooked up with veteran services. He's now receiving benefits. We got him an ID card because having an ID is a real barrier to getting housing. And we're working on getting him into some transitional housing. So the host team is making a big impact. They're cleaning up camps every single week. In fact, one of our biggest camp cleanup days is Sunday because there aren't as many people out, and it's easier for us to then go in and clean these camps. But so we're actively working on that. And then finally, before I stop and we start getting some questions here, I'm super excited because just today, we're bringing on 10 new volunteers in the police department. Now, these volunteers are going to be helping us, and the training that they'll go through today is to work specifically on abandoned vehicles. I'm talking those cars that they don't have an engine, they don't have any tires, they're just left in neighborhoods. This is not parked over 72 hours. This is absolute blight in the neighborhoods. They're also going to be doing vacation home checks, our You Are Not Alone program for seniors that are in place so that we can be checking on them. And then the last thing is they're going to be conducting downtown foot patrols. You know, a couple of years ago, we did some tweaking and we were able to, through overtime, get some downtown foot patrols. And we saw that made a huge impact of making business contacts, finding out what the issues were, and then we could work on them. Unfortunately, you know, handling 61,000 radio calls for service just last year alone, we don't have much time for the few officers that we do have to handle all that. So as a force multiplier, our volunteer program, they can help us by being the eyes and ears. Now, they're not going to be making contact with homeless people. They're not going to be making contact with criminals, but they have radios. And then they can tell us, hey, we need an officer over here to come deal with the people that actively are committing crimes, urinating, defecating, vandalizing, all that stuff. We're going to run it's easiest right now to run it downtown while we do the training program. And then our hope is that by October, this will be able to spread throughout the community. Now, our other 36 volunteers, they've already been trained. A number of them are already patrolling as extra eyes and ears out in the community. But to bring on 10 in one day, I think is a record for the department. And I'm really excited about that.
That is great, exciting news. Thank you, Chief Kath. So at this point, I'm sure there are some questions. Let's see, Josh Hilliard, Chief, it seems like a lot of our homeless come from the jail after they are released. Is there any solution that gets those people back to their communities faster? It seems that Woodland gets strapped because other cities in our county don't want to deal with their own homeless issues.
Yeah, you know, so there is a portion of the population that does get booked into jail and then they end up hanging around in Woodland. It's not as big as people may think. There are 2 points about this, though. The jail does offer bus passes to every single inmate. But you got to remember, we're dealing with folks that they don't want to comply with the laws. They don't want to fit into what some people may consider traditional norms of society. And so they do absolutely stick around. That's where the host team comes in. Our officers also, we track through the use of a cell phone app, all of our field contacts. And when we learn of where people are from, we try and get them to go back. I got to be clear, though. There was a court case a couple of years ago. People were getting shipped from a hospital out of that jurisdiction and down into another jurisdiction. We can't move people against their will. And because we're the county seat, that's why a lot of folks do hang around here. So we are working as hard as we can to get people moving back. We also have Kristen Klein, who works with us. She's not a sworn police officer, but she builds super strong relationships and tries to get these people back as quickly as possible. One note about the other jurisdictions, each jurisdiction is working on homeless in their own way. Now we're doing our project, right, BMOR 102. West Sacramento is buying hotels along West Cap, and then they are putting homeless people into those hotels. Davis is also working on a smaller shelter option, but so they'll have one as well. So each of the 3 major cities, they do have an option.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. Here's Ron Caceres. Are there any bills being introduced now or will be introduced to correct some of the problems with Prop 47?
So I can address that. There is an initiative on the ballot in November that has been designed to address some of the problems with Prop 47, specifically targeting the serial thieves. So it would reinstitute an ability for a court to sentence somebody as a felon if they commit more than 3 petty theft offenses in a certain course of time. So that would have a pretty profound impact on some of the, the real crime drivers that the chief was talking about. It also makes some other substantive changes to the law that would probably help, but really, there isn't a fix yet that's proposed to deal with the primary driver of this homeless epidemic, which again is addiction. And unless and until the law is changed to mandate treatment, confined treatment, I'm telling you, we're going to continue to see this revolving door. And if I can, I just want to share with you for a minute why I'm so passionate about this.
Yes.
And let me say this, first of all, Prop 47, I think a lot of people, they were really well-intentioned. They were trying to do something they thought was going to help keep people who were addicted from ending up in prisons. It just was bad policy. They didn't think all the way through it. And I don't know if I can share my screen here.
Maybe Cynthia can allow.
Are you able to share the screen, Jeff?
Let me try here. No, it says you've disabled it.
Here. Try now.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it here. Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it, so I'll just tell you the story. I was going to show you a picture of my nephew, who's 27 years old, and he was raised in a good family, all the support in the world. But about 7 years ago, he had a football injury. He started using Oxycontin, and that's translated into a full-blown heroin addiction. He's been living on the streets in Sacramento for 6 years. He's totally addicted. He's homeless, and he is the poster child for the failures of Prop 47. And I routinely run into him when I go down to Sacramento. I'll get off there at Richards Boulevard, right off Interstate 5, and that's his spot there. He sleeps by the river in a tent, and he's been there for years. There's a whole community down there of homeless people. But I'll stop and talk to him sometime. He'll see me pulling over or getting off the freeway, and he'll wave at me, "Hey, Uncle Jeff." And I'll chat with him, and I ask him, "What's going on? Tell me how your days are going." And so this is a really good example of what's happening with a lot of homeless, addicted people. He needs $80 a day, he says, to stay high, to get his heroin. And so I asked him, "How do you make your money?" He said, "Well, if he wakes up at the right time and he hits rush hour at certain off ramps, he says he can actually make $80 in an hour pretty easily. But again, he has to hit it at the right time at the right location." And so what do you do if you're not able to make your money? And which he says happens quite a bit because he's so high, he either oversleeps or just can't get there in time. He said he steals. And so I said, "Well, where do you steal?" And we're sitting in a McDonald's parking lot as he's telling me this. And he says, "I can walk into that McDonald's right now and some dummy left their purse open and I can grab a wallet. I can walk around to these cars out here and break a window and steal money." So he says he just steals. And I asked him, "Do you ever get caught?" He says, "All the time." I said, "What happens?" He says, "They write me a ticket." And Derek, the chief, can tell you about this. Standard protocol, especially in larger communities, is when the police catch somebody for a Prop 47 offense, so stealing less than $9.50 or possessing heroin, the police officer writes them a citation. And the citation says, "You're ordered to go to court." Do you think they go to court? No. We're tracking the data. In Yolo County, it's like an 80% failure to appear rate. And my nephew said he had a stack of tickets that he never went to court on. And even when he's contacted again by police officers, they might see he has a misdemeanor warrant for his arrest, but they don't take people to jail on misdemeanor warrants. They're too busy running felony to felony. So, my nephew is going to either die of an overdose or be murdered. And I love him. You know, I don't want that to happen. I also don't want him to go to prison. I want him to get treatment. But California is broken right now. The law does not mandate treatment for people like my nephew, who are the poster children for the homeless problem that we're all experiencing. So my plea to you all is, you know, you're business owners, you're involved in the community. We need to start speaking up. You need to get the city council to, you know, pass a resolution demanding a fix to 47. Have them, you know, and it can be just as simple as mandated treatment. But unless and until this starts to become, you know, a wave across California, I promise you the problem is going to get much, much worse. And in this recession, depression that we're in now, it's just going to be horrific. So, you know, this is personal to me. It's professional to me. And, you know, there's my plea to you. Derek?
Yeah, I have similar stories in my family too, and I bet most of us do, right? And what the DA just talked about is exactly true. I'm going to add a little wrinkle and try and get it into, you know, today's narrative. We absolutely do not have time to run every single arrestee, you know, 3,000 plus a year, to every single one out into the jail. Larger agencies close by, not as big as Sacramento, but you could go to a couple of these wealthy suburbs of Sacramento. They do have the time because they have triple the amount of officers that we have here in Woodland to book everybody in jail. The evidence-based studies absolutely confirm that the more busy an officer is, the more at risk they are for having a violent event. And what I'm talking about is this whole national narrative. Look, on behalf of the Woodland Police Department, we absolutely condemn all excessive force and racially biased policing. But we also acknowledge that law enforcement's not immune from the impacts of racism in our country's shared past, right? So if we can't level set about these truths, we can't move forward. But as your police chief, I'm no stranger to these conversations. I've been talking about all this stuff for years. I'm glad that we're talking about this stuff now, because these are the issues that we have been working on in Yolo County when no one else was paying attention. No one wanted to listen to your DA, your police chiefs, as we talked about these issues. It's wonderful that we're finally having these conversations. People don't need to be afraid of us. They don't need to be afraid of police. We're looking to reform. We are trying to reform. And what we're saying is it's larger than the police. We're talking about a whole system, right? We're talking about rehabilitation. Mental health is another thing. And one thing the DA hasn't talked about is one of the best mental health courts in the country is right here in Yolo County. And we have one of the national experts. His number 2, John Raven, is a national expert on mental health court. But we also got to talk about everything beyond that. We've got to talk about what are the opportunities for people in the community. And what I would say to this group here, you have one of the best chances of making an impact. If we have a strong and robust Chamber of Commerce and business community with job opportunities for good paying jobs, and that is going to make all the difference in the world on a socioeconomic level. That's how we really start getting change. My commitment to you as your police chief is, it is my duty to make town as safe as possible so that businesses can thrive, so that people can live, everyone equally can live a fantastic, safe, healthy life. That's what we're committed to.
We do have one more question, and this is Lisa, who owns the ice shop next door to me. Sorry, Lisa. But she is having an habitual criminal attempt to break into her office, steal items outside the building, caught him and his vehicle, a mini Winnebago, on camera, provided a recording to the officer who responded to the call, but ended up getting a lecture on how to better protect herself. She's got cameras, lights, inside and out. She locks all her doors, has a fence around the building. What else can we do? You know, we know the large scope I think, again, this is so educational to know how the DA's hands are tied, your hands are tied, but what can we do now for a solution? And, you know, beyond getting this information out to everybody that we know and taking action on larger platforms, but what can we do now?
Absolutely. First, I apologize if you got lectured. If that's how it came across, that's not the type of customer service that I'm shooting for. But second, what I would ask is that you don't give up hope. Continue to call and report, and then take a look at our online reports too. If there are little things that any of you don't feel like bothering the police department with, because remember at the beginning I talked about, if we look at nationally, crime is down, and here in California, crime being down, I think there is some fatigue in those crime numbers. You can report this stuff online, but if we don't know where it's happening and when it's happening, then we can't adjust our deployments, and we can't identify who's involved. Just because you report a crime online, it still is going to be investigated as if the officer came out on scene. It's just an opportunity for us to try and get more reports. We're actually looking at expanding the types of reports that we will accept online, because so many of us are digital now, right? And we have text to 911 now. It's kind of the future. But so my recommendation is continue calling. We are running programs. I'm a huge data proponent, right? I want to see evidence-based reasons of why the police department should be doing what we're doing. And we know that modern policing involves data research. And so we look at, where are the hot spots in town? Where are the officers going back to repeatedly, not just in a week, not just in a month, but over 3 months, a year. That's how we're attacking the firework problem right now. We have 10 years worth of data that we're looking at, because, I mean, that are terrorizing neighborhoods with mortar-style fireworks here in town. So keep calling. We absolutely want to come. If you're ever unhappy with service too, we do accept complaints on our website. And you can also just call dispatch and say, hey, can I talk to one of the supervisors and have a conversation, even if it's from a coaching standpoint. You are business, and you know that sometimes your employees don't meet that standard that you're going for. And wouldn't you rather someone told you about it so that you could take some corrective action, rather than going out and having a negative impact or a negative impression of your business? So let us know. If we're not meeting the mark, we want to know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chief Cap. Any closing remarks, Jeff?
No, I would just, first of all, thanks again for having me. The chief mentioned all of the programs that, we've been engaged in for years, and we're really committed in this county, and personally I'm committed to, the idea of providing mental health alternatives to people. Incarcerating people who are mentally ill isn't the answer. Addiction, we've got restorative justice courts, addiction intervention courts, mental health courts. We're doing everything that a truly, forward-leaning county should be doing on these topics. But when you get to back to this issue of homelessness, and that's why you invited me here today, I'm just, urging you to drill down into, the root causes of this problem, and you're going to find addiction. And I know people will debate me on that and say that it's a lack of affordable housing and poverty. And I will retort back that for those people where that's truly the issue, we've got so many solutions, and we've had so many success stories, but those people, that group of people is very small. The large majority of the people that are out there suffering, dying in our streets, are addicted and or mentally ill. So I hope that the chamber will get active in soliciting the city council to start making some public statements about this. I think the only way to get change in Sacramento, and that's where it's going to have to happen, is to start hearing from leaders, city leaders, county leaders, And I've been saying this nonstop since the law was passed, and hopefully something happens before I'm long gone. But anyway, thanks again for having me. I'm always here to help.
Good. Well, thank you, DA Reisig. Thank you, Chief Caff. Thank you for your passion and your commitment to our community, and taking the time away from your day to educate. It is a huge deal, and the Chamber will continue working on getting a resolution in front of our City Council to support making changes to Prop 47. I'd also like to thank everyone on the call today for taking the time to be concerned and look for ways that we can address this issue. It demonstrates that you're an active community member and we need your help. So please communicate what you've learned here today. Please get involved with part of the solution. That means getting involved with your chamber. We've got a public policy division. Please, if you are interested in more on this subject, get a hold of the chamber and get out on our email distributions for those meetings. This is a huge, there's not a short solution, but I think we can all do our part in getting the word out and coming together to make a difference. So with that, is there any public announcements, any events, anybody want to tout anything going on? We do have a drawing today. Sophia Herrick, if she's still on the line, she has won a DAPIT gift card.
I'm here, you just can't see me, or you might not be able to. I had to switch from my computer to my phone.
Very good. Well, congratulations, Sophia. You'll get your DAPIT card from Cynthia. Thank you all again for coming. Please make your reservations for the State of the City on July 15th. Our next Lunch and Learn is scheduled for July 22nd, and our speaker will be from Visit California. Get your golf teams together and look out for more information on the Chamber Golf Tournament on Thursday, September 17th. The City Council meets on, oh, Tom, what is it? Is it the first and third Tuesday of each month? Is Tom still with us?
I think he clicked off.
Okay.
It is the first and third, yes.
Okay. First and third Tuesday. Get involved, attend. The meeting is right now as easy as this. Signing on to a Zoom and listening, and you can get yourself heard. So be part of the solution. Thank you, everyone.